Chain smoke your problems away. Smokepit Fairy Tales Part 4, Chapter 33. Tighten your grip. First Squad sat in the Star Knight, latched to the flight deck of the bottom shard, waiting for the jump to near light speed. Thatch looked down to the rusty Martian surface, trying to put his eyes on Camp Castle. He wondered how Simoon was doing, thinking that maybe an apology was warranted. The circular windows on the Star Knights didn't offer a fantastic view, but it was enough to see what was going on outside.
You'd think they'd have gotten us replacements or reinforcements.
Capulet complained about the size of India Company.
Or at least a boot drop.
McKenzie said. Chuck shook his head.
No, if we got boots, they just get killed. We wouldn't have time to train them, and replacements wouldn't be much better because they don't know our TTPs.
I guess you're right.
He checked the time in his HUD.
3 more minutes.
He turned his head to his squad leader.
You ready, Thatch?
Thatch didn't hear him.
Thatch!
Capulet called again to no response.
Sergeant!
Thatch shook himself out of his trance.
Yeah, 2 minutes.
Capulet tapped his wrist. Thatch looked over his Marines. Hopefully the battalion commander was right, and it would be a quick in and out with minimal losses. Thatch tried to be optimistic, but couldn't force himself. He'd never even heard of a division-level assault before. Either they were going to dominate, or there's something they weren't being told. Thatch tightened his grip around his rifle as the bottom shard shot into the heavens. The stars seemed to blur in the distance. They sailed for just under half an hour actual time, but because of how close they were going to the speed of light, the Marines only noticed a minute pass. When the ship stopped and turned its hull towards Venus's third Lagrange point, Thatch ordered his squad to load their weapons. The stars blurred again, and Thatch waited for the show to start with a nervous anticipation. The American fleet slowed to a cruising speed in an attack formation. Thatch kept his eyes on the starboard side porthole. He looked at the giant silver ring floating in space, counting the enemy ships around it, and with a worried tone said,
That's a lot more than a 3-ship flotilla.
What?
Chuck asked, hopping up to peer out of the window.
Oh, fuck.
An armada of Russian warships was postured in a defensive formation around Volgograd. Not 15 seconds passed before several dozen battleships, cruisers, and destroyers opened fire on the American ships. A thick, solid beam of white light from a Russian battleship ripped through the vacuum of space and punched a clean, circular hole through the hull of the USS Ranger. The beam slowed her momentum, her power was killed, and a smooth, wide hull stood empty where most of the ship used to be.
Fuck! When did they put direct energy weapons on their ship?
I don't fucking know, dude!
Thatch barked. He watched the glowing metal around the Ranger's hull fade back to the cold blue color of steel.
That was all of Lima Company.
God damn it!
We're so fucked.
Thatch saw the worry in his Marines' eyes through their helmets and called over the radio to Lieutenant Benjamin.
Sir, what the fuck is going on?
The radio hissed for a second before Benjamin got back to him.
I don't know, Sergeant. Intel fucked up. That's a drastic goddamn understatement.
Thatch looked back out the window. He stood impotently with his Marines as they watched the Russians slug out the American ships. The fleet spread out in an effort to deny the enemy the ability to concentrate firepower. A 3-cruiser flotilla changed their heading straight towards the bottom shard, firing missiles and deck guns. The missiles were destroyed by the BHR's automatic anti-missile machine guns. The Russian shells rocked the ship when they impacted. The Marines and the Sea Knights were jerked to the sides of their birds. Thatch tried to make sense of the radio traffic screaming through his gear. Marines from all sections jabbered over the waves, demanding explanations or prophesizing their impending doom. When he realized there were no useful communications, he turned the volume off and set a light to blink on his HUD if a message was sent directly to him. One of the Russian cruisers charged the BHR, firing every gun on her deck. Thatch watched the American mechs fire their weapons at the cruiser. The bottom shard was primarily a troop transport and didn't have large guns of her own. The hulls and decks of both ships were scarred and torn. Thatch watched shells tear through the decks beside the Sea Knights. He turned his radio back up and hailed the platoon commander.
Sir, why the fuck are we still on the flight deck? We're gonna get fucking killed just sitting here!
The lieutenant was silent. Thatch scoffed and turned back to watch the battle. The cruiser sped at their ship at ramming speed. The BHR maneuvered to port and dodged the ram. The mechs on the flight deck fired nets on cables to the Russian ship that caught the guns. The distance between the ships closed, and fire was exchanged point blank. Thatch looked at the cruiser's hull. It was close enough to hit with a rock. The mechs had blown holes all the way through the enemy vessel, and were now attacking the deck guns specifically. The ship shook with every blow. A gaping hole in the flight deck ejected flame, burning off the interior oxygen. Captain Rodzer called over the net.
All stations, the BHR's fucked. The catapults aren't working. The captain's called abandoned ship. We're leaving the Sea Knights on the deck, trying to get over to the cruiser. Mechs will cease fire in 30 seconds.
Thatch turned to his squad.
Alright, you heard him, let's fucking go!
The Marines released themselves from their seats, opened the Sea Knight's hatch, and leaped towards the enemy ship. Thatch jumped from the bottom of Shard's deck first with the squad in tow. He pointed his rifle forwards as he floated through the vacuum, aiming himself at a scar in the hull. Thatch floated into the enemy ship's tear with his weapon pointed to the side, not taking his aim off the passageway until his shoulder hit the bulkhead. The rest of his squad filed in after him. He got a quick head count and told Chuck's fire team to lead them up the decks. The rest of India Company soaked into the cruiser like water into a sponge. Thatch looked out the hold hull to see the BHR buckle and collapse on itself into a heap of debris. Short bursts of flame shot from the wounds as the last of the oxygen burnt out. The cruiser's passageways were painted with the blood of Russian sailors killed during the skirmish. Very few had more than a limb left of them. Thatch looked at the map on the wall for anything that might read similar to, "You are here." All he could find was the ship's name, Serapis.
McKenzie!
Yes, Sergeant.
You read Russian better than I do. Figure out where we are and how to get to the bridge.
Got it.
McKenzie scanned the diagrams looking for clues. A chunk of metal ripped out of the wall. He turned to see a couple of Russians firing at them. He wondered why he didn't hear the guns until he remembered that he was still in a vacuum.
Contact!
First squad turned and fired back until the Russians stopped.
Did we get him?
Go check it out.
He took his fire team down to the intersection. The Russians stood on their feet with lifeless, flailed arms and suits full of holes. Schneider stuck the tip of her finger into the wounds.
Why are they still standing up, Corporal?
Probably because they have magnetic boots like ours.
Schneider looked down at their footwear.
No shit.
Capulet radioed Thatch.
Yeah, they're dead.
All right. McKenzie, you find anything?
Not yet.
McKenzie kept his eyes on the diagrams on the wall.
But there's a ladder well 50 meters ahead.
All right, then, let's move. We can't afford to just stand around. McKenzie, get us upstairs.
McKenzie told Hawk to take point and moved the squad forward. When they turned the first corner, Hawk came face to face with another Russian. He pulled up his weapon to fire, but it jammed. The Russian jumped at him, and Hawk stopped him by slamming his muzzle into the Russian's mask. The glass shattered, leaving the Russian gasping for air, but none could be found. Irish put a bullet in him while Hawk cleared his weapon. Hawk pointed his weapon up the ladder well. He saw a pair of boots and raised his weapon toward the person in front's chest. Whoever it was also pointed their weapon at him. Hawk flipped off the safety, then paused. He lowered his weapon and put a hand up when he saw that the enemy was another Marine. Hawk nodded his head up.
We're India 3-1.
The other Marine pointed his rifle to the deck.
Kilo. Sergeant, we found some Marines from Kilo.
Hawk called in. Thatch made his way to the front of the column, then up the stairs to see who was around.
Who all's here?
A staff sergeant came over to Thatch and told him.
Most of 2nd Platoon, what about you?
Just my squad. We're trying to get to the bridge.
Yeah, us too. Fall in the rear.
Aye, aye.
Thatch rallied his squad and followed the Marines from Kilo up toward Serapis' tower. Enemy hostility was limited. Most were killed during the naval battle. Thatch thought about what it must have been like for the sailors on the bottom yard when he saw a Russian who wasn't much more than a torso floating near the ceiling. He shuddered for a moment, then got his head back in the game. The only firefights were short and came primarily from the front of the column. Akan watched the BHR's hull burn as she counted her Marines entering a hole through the Serapis' hull. It was hard to grasp what was happening, but she couldn't let doubt hinder her performance. She slipped inside after the last of her Marines were aboard.
Lighthouse, take point.
She checked her HUD for schematics. Anything would help, but her search yielded no fruit.
Great.
Sergeant, which way are we going?
Lighthouse asked. Akan looked at the influx of red dots on her radar, indicating that the ship was flooded with Marines.
Take us to the stern. Also, turn the magnets in your boots on. I don't want to get ambushed floating around like a jackass.
Second squad hurried down the passageways.
Any station. India 1-2.
Akan hailed whoever was listening.
Okan, India 6, send your traffic.
Captain Rodzer answered her.
Interrogative. What's the CLA?
Chaos, take the ship. Eliminate all enemy personnel. Stand by.
Rodzer put her on pause for a moment.
Kilo is assaulting the bridge. Make movement towards the engine room. Prevent sabotage.
Roger. Out.
Akan severed the link and ordered her Marines to halt.
You guys hear that? Lighthouse, take us to the belly of the ship. Let's keep this bitch running.
They snaked through the darkness of Serapis' passageways. The enemies they found were all dead. The squad passed a corridor leading further into the belly of the beast. Akan stopped the squad when she saw the stairs to her right.
Hey, follow me. I'm taking point.
Akan's Marines followed her down the ladder well. She nudged a couple of floating corpses out of her path with her muzzle. She noticed a dim light radiating from the other end of the hall, creeping out of a half-closed hatch. Akan peeked through the creek and saw a couple of Russian sailors screaming at each other in front of the ship's engine. She slung her rifle, pulled out her pistol, and signaled her squad to stay put. She knew she didn't have to worry about noise because of the vacuum, and waited for the Russians to turn back toward the machinery. She pushed the door open with her free hand and put a bullet in each one of the Russians' helmets. The first one hit the Russian's head, killing him instantly. The second missed the Russian's skin, but still blew out the glass in the front of his helmet. He panicked and gasped for air. Akan gave the room a quick scan. When she saw it was empty, she put a round in the struggling Russian's face and called the squad in.
Secure the hatches and set up security.
Akan ordered Lighthouse before radioing Captain Rodzer.
India 6, India 1-2.
Send it.
Rodzer's voice buzzed over their communications link.
Engine room secured. Please advise.
Stay put. Hold that room.
Roger.
Akan looked at the Serapis' motor. It wasn't as monstrous as the one on other ships. Piping and gears were exposed to the vacuum, but everything seemed to be working properly. She assumed the Russians didn't get the chance to start scuttling it before she busted in. Thatch's squad posted security in the Serapis' ready room. It was the last choke point before the bridge. Kilo had gone to take the tower, and it would have been too cramped to take everyone. Thatch ordered the hatches to be sealed and locked, with at least 2 Marines guarding the 3 doors from the ceiling to throw off anyone who might force their way in. Brown leather chairs sat in rows through the room. Maps of the solar system, portraits of the ship's chain of command, and plaques hung on the blue steel walls.
So what do you think's going on outside?
Chuck asked.
There's no way to tell. We could be winning. We could be fucked.
Do you think anyone's gotten to Volgograd?
Probably not. They have to get through that armada first.
Stockton tried to scratch her thigh through her suit, to no avail.
What's the plan for the wounded?
Huh?
Thatch looked at her.
We can't leave them anywhere. It's not like we can evacuate them to BHR.
We're just gonna have to take them with us. It shouldn't be too hard as long as we don't get hit. The gravity being out will favor us there. And if they're dead, well, we just have to leave them for now.
Stockton was disturbed by the thought of leaving the bodies of Marines in an unrecoverable area, but she knew they didn't really have an alternative option.
What's the plan after Kilo takes the tower?
I don't know. I haven't been able to reach anyone besides O'Con, and she doesn't know anything either.
Great.
A tremendous explosion somewhere outside the room shook the ship. First squad was thrown off their feet into the walls as the Serapis shook and spun. The violent motion ceased, and Marines got back to their posts.
What the fuck was that?
Did the ship get hit again?
O'Con!
Thatch barked into the radio.
What?
Whiskey Tango, the fuck just happened?
The radio was silent for a few moments.
It looks like the ship's magazine lit up. No word on casualties.
Motherfucker! Did I even do that?
No idea. I'm only slightly less lost than you, dude.
Fuck!
Thatch looked over his Marines. They seemed alright.
My squad's good if anyone asks.
Yeah, I'll shoot that up.
Thatch paced around the ready room, thinking of what to do. He was supposed to hold his squad in position, but with limited communication and no idea what was happening, it didn't feel right to just sit there.
Stockton, McKenzie, and Royce, you guys stay put. Capulet, your team's coming with me. I need to know what the fuck's going on.
Capulet pulled his Marines off their posts and gathered near the door to the tower with Thatch. He pulled open the hatch and stared outside in horror. The Serapis' tower was gone.
Holy fucking shit.
The fire team stared out into the stars in terror. Half of the Serapis was turned into dust. The rest was a floating heap of twisted metal. The fleets were still slugging it out in space around the colony, but they hadn't gotten close to Volgograd.
Holy fucking shit!
Was Kilo out there?
Schneider asked nervously.
I think so.
Thatch watched the shells, missiles, and energy weapons exchange between the ships around him. The horror and sense of dread that built inside him mixed with an acute stress and teetered on the brink of mental collapse. The realization came to him that he wasn't going to make it out alive. This time deferred from the others, though, because now he had time to think about the impending doom of his Marines. He activated his comlink.
O'Con, Thatch.
Send it.
Who do you have communication with?
Just you.
Can you steer the ship from the engine room?
Yes? Why?
Angle the ship 30 degrees starboard and descend by 80.
What are we doing?
We're gonna drive this fucking ship into the colony. We're fucking dead either way. Might as well go for broke.
Akan jumped on the Serapis' engine controls and followed Thatch's instructions. Thatch watched the ship move and head towards Volgograd from the ledge.
Alright, maintain this course. Maybe Ivan will think he regained control.
American and Russian ships fired wildly into space. All seemed to ignore the Serapis.
Alright, it looks like we're less than 100 kilometers out.
Thatch turned back to his Marines.
First squad, get out to the gun decks, prepare to fire. Get on any external weapon system that's still operable.
His squad left, leaving him to guide the ship alone. The USS Vengance and the Alliance knocked out a Russian destroyer and blasted the escape pods. Thatch rolled his radio frequency to the Navy's emergency line.
USS Vengeance, come in.
Who is this?
The voice on the other end of the radio demanded.
Sergeant Allensworth, India Company 3-1 off the USS Bon Richard.
Where are you? What do you need?
The voice asked as if it was surprised to hear anyone survive the BHR.
We've taken the Russian ship Serapis. We're sailing it to Volgograd. Can you provide escort?
What's the enemy situation on the ship?
Unknown. So is friendly.
The twin ships, Vengeance and Alliance's hulls, turned towards the Serapis and fired a couple of shots past its hull.
What the fuck are you doing? There's Marines on here!
We're making it look like we're firing on you to throw off the Russians.
Thatch wasn't happy with that answer, but didn't have the authority to tell them to fuck off.
Roger.
He relayed the plan to Akan and his squad, and watched Volgograd Island grow in size as they closed the distance. 6 Griffin model mechs latched onto the Serapis and started punching the ship, making it look like they were trying to penetrate the hull. Thatch called into his Marines for a situation report. They'd linked up with random groups of wandering Marines and found anti-aircraft guns on the deck to man for when they got closer to the colony. Akan sent her squad to man the posts with them. Volgograd's hangar bay grew closer. Fire erupted from the colony towards the Vengeance and Alliance. Thatch called down to Akan.
Alright, adjust 10 degrees to port and slow to docking speed.
Akan pulled back on the engine room helm and shifted the rudder.
Hey everybody, what's up? Thanks for listening to another chapter of Chain Smoke Your Problems Away. We're heating up a little bit here, huh? I know this doesn't matter too much to you guys here right now, but I think it's kind of cool that we're wrapping up on Smokepit Fairy Tales 4 on YouTube while I'm wrapping up the edit for Chain Smoke Your Problems Away. Not Chain Smoke Your Problems Away. Why am I saying that? Well, I'm wrapping up the edit for One Liquid Dew of Youth Smokepit Fairy Tales 5 on the editing front. Like, we got 7 more chapters of Chain Smoke Your Problems Away here on YouTube, and I think I've got like 3 or 4 chapters to edit for Book 5. So hopefully with any amount of luck, by the time that Smokepit Fairy Tales 5 starts coming over here to YouTube, you know, that first episode or that first chapter I can be like, hey, if you don't want to wait for me to read it, you can just go get the book on Audible. Which, by the way, if you don't want to wait for me to read the rest of this book to you here, you can just go get it on Audible. Or I put all these chapters up on Patreon as soon as I get done editing them, and they're edited. I don't want to say unedited. Uncensored? That's the word I'm looking for. And I would just give you the uncensored version of all that here on YouTube, but, you know, community guideline violations and all that. My dogs are going at it today. Like, I originally had another channel, which I'm still a little bit bitter about, where I was, you know, doing what I'm doing here with the chapter-sodes, and when we got to the chapter with the sex scene in the first book, YouTube just nuked my channel, completely deleted it, didn't give me any option to, like, rebut or anything like that. And I think I can submit an appeal, last time I checked, sometime in 2028, which is fucking fun because that channel was only up for, I think, you know, 5 months-ish, and it was already at about 1,500 followers. Like, it blew up real quick in the second ones. The algorithm's not being as kind to me. But, you know, hey, that's what it is, right? And that's all that it is. But on that, I would like to thank everybody for tuning in and listening. I would like to thank everybody who's, you know, gone and, you know, actually, you know, just bought the books and, you know, either read it physically or listened to the Audible version of it. I'd also like to thank my Patreon members who get these chapters, you know, as I'm done editing them, and they get them unedited. And I'd also like to thank my YouTube YouTube channel members who get these as soon as I, you know, upload them, which, you know, is a few days early. I'm trying to get better about it. It's Sunday when I'm recording this now. I might do another one later this week. I should really do that. I need to start uploading a week before, but, you know, whatever. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. I'd also like to thank everybody who's been getting the war chests, which are the box sets of these books. And they come with, you know, like stickers and cards and patch. And it's all on a custom painted 50 cal ammo can. And, you know, I put a pin on the map for, you know, where they go. And then YouTube channel members, Patreon people, and war chest peeps, they all get their name in the credits too. So also on the home front, I've been running through it. I've been painting a lot. And like, I enjoy painting. I enjoy, you know, creating art. If you've read the physical copies of these books, you know, there's art in them. And I make a lot of art that, you know, it relates to these books in general, although most of the paintings I've done recently haven't been. But the goal with that is that, you know, paintings are immediate cash, and I'm using that money best I can to, you know, help with voice actors for the next couple books. I mean, I get a lot of volunteers in, which I fucking love. I love that most of the voice actors in these books are fans of the books. You know, it's kind of like, hey, dude, we're all in this fucking having a good time together, you know? But some of these books have quite a large cast, and hiring voice actors isn't exactly cheap. So unless, you know, you want me to play the chicks, that's kind of something that we either gotta, you know, pay for or wait for. But I mean, you know, so far we're figuring it out. That being said, if you want to, you know, help out on that front, or if you just think my art's cool, you know, you can go check it out on my site. I'll show you some of what I've been painting in the credits here. But anyway, that being said, thanks for tuning in. I am going to start editing this so it gets on YouTube in somewhat of a reasonable manner. I do got some bloopers coming up for you, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Ciao.
Test, mic test, mic test. Thatch tightened his grip around his rifle as the bottom of shard shot into the heavens. Roll credits.
Let's do it with the noise gate. It's been a couple weeks.
He looked at the glass silver ring floating in space. Giant. Glass? I don't know where I pulled that word from. Out of my ass? Out of my G-ass?
That's a lot more than a 3-shit flotilla. That's what I left in the toilet after Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thatch. That is a halo? That's a lot more than a 3-ship flotilla. Sorry.
That's a lot more than a 3-ship flotilla. Ship.
Damn it, I ruined everything. Stepped on his tail. It wasn't even his tail, how proper. It was just like, you know, the fringy fur dangling from it. But I pulled it a little bit. Yeah. I'm gonna pause. To Volgograd.
All right, it looks like we're less than 100 kilometers.
You get there fast and then you get real sad, 'cause shit got really bad. Over in Volgograd.
I'm just going to do those 2 lines again.
I was at the thick, solid cream of white light.
Why are you... Fuck. Retake.
Thatch looked back. Thatch looked back. Oh, right.
Do that all again.
When he realized there were no useful communications, he turned the volume off and said a light I think it was good the first time. Why did I demand to go back?
Chapter 33. Tighten your grip.
One of the Russian Dodge Chargers cruised.
You'd think they'd have gotten us replacements or reinforcements. You'd think they'd have gotten us replacements or reinforcements.
Trip. Thatch. Contact!
Capulet takes his team to check on the Russians who are floating dead.
Oh, yeah, you're right. McKenzie. I was wrong 2 times.
Probably because they have magnetic boots like ours. Probably. Fucking mouth isn't smart today.
He panicked and grasped for air. Gasped. He gasped for air. He grasped for air with his gasping.
Schneider, nervous. Was Kilo out there? I'm Schneider and I'm crying out my nose.
Sound check. Test. First squad was thrown off their feet into the walls of the I don't remember how to say this. Serapis. Fucking Cyrillic. All right.